Hello, and welcome to Granite State Real Estate. My name's Laura Gargas, and I'm a member of the Granite State South Board of Realtors. On today's episode, the amazing and sometimes unexpected benefits of an organized home. My guest today is professional organizer Francesca Veri. Francesca, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So Francesca, you're an organizer with a very interesting perspective. I understand that you consider organizing to be as essential to home maintenance as painting and repairs. Now that is a very strong statement. Tell me why you consider organization to be so critical.
Absolutely. Let me give you an example of how I got started in this business to help illustrate. About 17 years ago, I was an assistant dean at a college just outside of Boston. And luckily, I have a knack for order because this was a big job, a lot of moving parts. There were directors who reported to me who were brilliant, brilliant people, and they could never seem to get me their monthly reports on time, almost no matter what I did. So I approached one of them, who was a friend of mine, and I just sort of wanted to get to the root cause of what was.
Well, that's frustrating, yes.
It was very frustrating. And we found that her clutter and her disorganization were really preventing her from managing her time and really thinking clearly. So I worked with her over the course of a few weeks. I built entirely new systems, which is a strength of mine, and my reports started coming in on time. And I thought, you know, if this is a problem for this brilliant director, it's probably a universal problem. And a business was born.
So that's amazing that your intuition told you to get to the root of the problem rather than just yelling at her. And
yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, I've been doing this work for over 17 years, and I can tell you with the utmost confidence that organization improves lives, period. You know, when you can find your things, you gain hours back in your day, and that frees you up to do any number of things. You know, eat better, work out more, spend more time with family and friends, all things that are really critical to overall wellness.
Okay, so I can probably accept that organization is important to us personally, but in terms of real estate, because this is a real estate show, and you know the most important investment that most people make, how should we be viewing organization? I mean, do homes have their own kind of sense of wellness as well?
Oh yes, and that's a really great way of putting it, house wellness. You know, when you look at this from a real estate perspective, when homeowners with organized, tidy homes prepare to sell, their experience is likely to be significantly less stressful. In fact, with respect to the decision to sell, opportunities present themselves, you know, to buy a dream home across town or move to another city, retire early. And a lot of times people look at those as unattainable because they think there's no way I can get my house on the market.
Well, you know, and I can tell you as a realtor, oftentimes clients will say, are those people willing to sell down the street? So you're knocking on that door.
That's right.
And they may not have considered selling, but if you're walking into a disaster,
that's right.
That's not a good thing.
That's right. So to be able to take advantage of these opportunities as they arise, really it involves organization, and I think it's important in today's world to be able to do that.
Yeah, you can be a lot more nimble, it sounds like.
It's a great word.
So speaking of that, if a homeowner does find themselves in that position, how should they be looking at their home from a buyer's perspective in terms of organization?
You know, so very often the biggest reason that people give for buying a home is lack of space in their current home. So if a buyer's going to a seller's house and the cabinets are overflowing, the drawers are busting, and you can't park a car in the garage, that signals to the buyer that the seller's running out of space. And that's not the impression that the seller wants to make.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Right, because people are often, maybe they've had another child, they need more space for whatever reason, and if the current owners appear to be outgrowing that space too, that's terrible.
Yeah, that's what they're looking for.
And you know, also I've heard many buyers complain that things like architectural details, wood floors are being covered up by clutter, and you know that's a shame.
Yeah, that's right.
If that's a distraction.
That's right. There's so many reasons to live organized. You know, the reason that realtors suggest that you bake cookies when someone comes to your house is because a lot of times people associate the smell of something baking or cooking with comfort. So what I tell people is, what baking cookies accomplishes with aroma, an organized, tidy home accomplishes with sight, visually, because it affects how you feel in the space.
That is actually brilliant. I never thought of it that way. But the cookie smell is so effective, or a roaring fire. Plus, I would imagine that when you have less clutter, when you as the seller go to move out, that simplifies things for you and makes it way less stressful.
Yeah, the effects of living organized, having an organized space really start to snowball very quickly.
Absolutely. Okay, so from a practical point of view, say that I am a seller planning on selling 6 months from now, or even sooner than that, and I have some real problem areas. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Where do I even start?
Okay, so my best advice, especially if you're doing this tidying on your own, is to take it slow, one step at a time, one small area at a time, because this could be really overwhelming to do. So the easiest thing to do is to create a schedule. Make a list of every, countertop, cabinet, desk, what have you, that needs to be tidied, and then make an appointment with yourself to address those areas. And depending on what your time frame is, I would suggest you address maybe one area a week. Take 10, 20 minutes a day even. People think it has to be this grand amount of time, but not necessarily. Just to lighten the load a little bit, starts to make the space feel better, and then you just stick with it until that one area is done, and then move to the next area.
Well, and what is your feeling about going into triage mode, where we do have an example, and I think they're going to put it on the screen, of a before and after of a night table in a bedroom, and I know sometimes the idea of cleaning out your whole closet, might be, just overwhelming. But if you, I had a seller do this one time. They just straightened out the night table, and it made a huge difference in the overall feel of the room. So that,
Sure.
Is that worth doing? Small areas?
Absolutely. That's what I'm talking about. Even those small areas, because that can really affect the feel of the whole space.
And it is emotion. You really are talking about the emotion that someone's going to feel, which is
Correct.
a little intangible, but it's so doable.
But it's there. That emotion
Right.
definitely is there. People do feel something when they walk into an organized space versus something that feels full or cluttered.
Well, speaking of emotion, what if my problem is that I think, this all sounds great, but I probably won't
Do it.
really follow through.
Right.
I
Right.
won't make that time to do
Right.
it. What do you tell a person like that?
Look, that's where I come in. Call me or another organizer. We just get you jump started. Just start the conversation. If you think of it this way, after you get off the phone with me or another organizer, you're that much closer to your goal than you were 5 minutes prior.
You're starting the momentum.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. It's only a small step sometimes, and it builds. So after someone does, let's say I get to that point, I've picked up the phone, I've called you. What happens next?
So the first step with me is always the same, a consultation, so I can see your space, hear what's going on, hear what's working, what's not working. And from there, I recommend a plan and then create a timeline. And if the client's ready to go, we get started.
Sounds great to me. So in terms of your projects, do you generally work short-term with people? Are they more long-term projects, a mix?
It depends. The bottom line is that I meet people where they are. So if they have an upcoming deadline, like a move, or they're planning to sell, like you were talking about triage mode, I kind of focus more on triage mode. What areas in the house, if they were better organized, would improve the look and feel of the home? If there isn't an immediate deadline, I like to take more of an holistic approach. I focus on creating systems that can be maintained by the client to help them reduce their clutter and their stress and their overwhelm. Give them that sense of time, feeling of time. Create an overall sense of well-being in the space. Because when we lighten the space, you breathe in the space. I always tell people, if you can breathe in the space, you can do anything in the space. And sometimes, I'm in and out in 2 to 3 sessions. Other times, it could be a month or two. Just like with real estate, no two homes are alike, no two situations are alike.
Well, full disclosure, I have worked with you personally, and we're going to put on the screen, I don't live in this house anymore, but a project that we did together where it kind of started out with me being frustrated that my playroom had been, well, my living room had been turned into a playroom right off the kitchen. And I had young children at the time, and I just wanted that space back. I wanted my living room back. So we can show the before picture of that. And I remember you came in and we discussed the fact that, well, yes, it would be nice to clean this space out, but is this really where the playroom should be moving forward?
Right.
Do you remember that?
I do remember, and your kids were, getting into another phase.
Right, they were getting a little older.
So that's why we were kind of questioning that, like, where is your living room? So we looked at the basement then just to see, because I had to see sort of where the domino effect was. Where do we need to start really at ground zero? Where is ground zero? Is it really the living room or the playroom in the living room? Or should we be looking somewhere else to see if that's a better place for where the play area should be?
Right, and then we went to the basement. I think we have a before shot of the basement and thought, oh my gosh, so now this turned into two projects.
Correct.
Because we then had to clean out the basement because we sort of said they're probably old enough now to play in the basement on their own. So we wound up cleaning the basement, moving the playroom down there, and then I had my living room back. And we have a bunch of pictures we can show that kind of illustrates that. But that, it made a huge difference in my life, and it really taught me some skills that I took with me to my next home.
And sometimes that's what it takes, is to kind of have an outside person take a look at, because you're in it.
Right.
So it's hard for you to kind of conceive of what do you mean the basement? But it did end up working out very well for you for the many years that you were in that house.
That I stayed there.
That,
yeah. And I mean, speaking of that, do you generally, I know you did with me, do the organizing yourself, or do you do it with the client, or some combination?
I work with the client, typically in 3-hour sessions. Since I'm not attached to your things, if you left me to my own devices, you'd have nothing left, right? So I need to work with the client. I want you to work with me to help sort through and decide on what's important, what should stay, what should go. And it's a good lesson for the client to actually do that kind of work, because they can learn how they got cluttered. That's part of my goal, is to kind of figure out, like, how did this all happen? And then learn how to prevent it from happening in the future.
Well, if people want to talk with you, if they want to find out more, how can they get in touch with you?
So it's easy. If you remember my name, Francesca Verri, V-E-R-R-I, and my website is francescaverri.com. And if your viewers go to my website and go to the contact page and fill out that contact form, it's a short one, you get a free 30-minute phone conversation with me. So we can get the ball rolling.
Well, that's great.
Yes.
I didn't know about that. That's a great benefit. I might do that to have you in my new house.
Sure.
So we're almost out of time. I would like to close with the most wonderful analogy that you shared with me before the show, comparing your services to Botox. Could you share that?
Sure. So listen, if your viewers remember nothing else from this, I want them to remember this. When they go into someone's home and it is tidy and organized and neat, never assume that it came naturally to the person. Many people get help. Now, my services are always confidential, and people often sort of call me their secret weapon, like Botox. Everyone sees the results, but no one knows you've had work done.
Well, somehow that makes me feel a lot better.
Sure.
We all need help from sometimes, 100% true.
Yes. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And with people like you in this world, why should we?
Thank you.
Well, Francesca Verri, professional organizer, thank you very much for joining us.
You're very welcome. Pleasure of mine.
And thank you all for joining us for this episode of Granite State Real Estate. I'm Laura Gargis. Have a great day.